Video, Purple Political Talk here, and today I'm going to do a little part 2 to a video I did recently with 2020 elections prediction with Ben, and I'm just going to keep on talking about what the Hispanic community is and simply how some of these traits are trending and how the Hispanic votes affect that. So if you haven't checked out that video, I will link it up in the card. It's a really good video, and to get a very good understanding of what I'm talking about, you should go watch that video maybe later, and then you're gonna understand better. So first thing that we must analyze is that I talked about that in the other video, that Hispanics are a very diverse voting bloc. Well, some Hispanics in states like Florida or perhaps Texas maybe, they're very solid with the Republican Party. For the most part, they're pretty solid with the Democratic Party. There is some scenarios where Hispanics are truly the tilting factor of an election. And honestly, most important states would be Florida, I would say Texas, and Arizona, which at this point are the most swing states that have Hispanic influence. So I'm just going to say that all I'm saying is from everything I've seen and what I've read in the comments and all these different things with maybe some other people that are Hispanic. So that's what I'm going to base all of this off of. So first thing, I'm going to say that the solid Democratic states, they're getting helped a lot by the different Hispanic groups. And maybe a state like New Jersey without having that many Hispanics. Because believe it or not, although New Jersey might not be seen as this huge Hispanic hotspot, there is a lot of Hispanics there. I know that there's a lot of Mexicans in New Jersey. And honestly, that is just showing that these areas are very diverse. And essentially, these areas are cosmopolitan areas. And I'll include for this state of Colorado as well. These are a very cosmopolitan area. In California, you have Los Angeles and San Francisco. In Nevada, you have Las Vegas. Denver, you have Colorado. Chicago, Illinois. New York, you have New York City. And New Jersey's New York City suburb. These different areas, since they're cosmopolitan, which means that there are a lot of different cultures coming in together, Democrats usually have a lot of a Hispanic vote there. And it's usually because we don't see as many of the more conservative Hispanics or the Hispanics that are going away from oppressive governments. And honestly, these is why we see this. But there's a couple of exceptions though. In places like New York, or mostly in New York, there's a very big base of all the different types of Hispanic voters. So realistically, it doesn't matter because the majority of voters are Democrat. But if this were to come down to a very swingish state, the Hispanic vote would matter. And generally speaking, a lot of these safe Democratic states, you took away Hispanic vote and you took away the other minorities that live in the states, and all these states obviously, or for the most part, would go Republican. And I think the only states that might not do that is possibly New York, because of the different white affluent class voters, the white college educated, and even just the college educated people that have that kind of mindset. Now, there's 3 states I really want to talk about specifically in this video. These other states are important to the Hispanic community and everything, but there's 3 states I really want to talk about: Florida, Texas, and Arizona. So I feel like there's a couple misconceptions with the state of Texas. Yes, people are saying that demographic changes is truly what is making the state more competitive, but there's actually, although that might not be completely false, because in reality that's one big factor of why we've seen Texas going farther into the Democratic column. But the reason why I think other people are neglecting to analyze this is that a lot of different people from different areas of the country that are more liberal are moving to Texas. And I think it's pretty safe to say that over the last couple of years, I haven't analyzed the data completely perhaps, but I think that generally speaking, I've seen a lot of more Republican trends in states like California. Doesn't that mean that Republicans have a chance at winning the state of California anytime soon? What it does mean is that some people are moving from California and to Texas, and we're going to see a lot more states going to become like that. States like North Carolina and Kentucky, which are not Hispanic or anything related to that. Those 2 states having people move there because of the tech booms and the economic booms in their biggest cities in Louisville and in areas like Raleigh and Durham. And this really means that realistically, a lot of these liberals are moving to these other places, which means vote margins are going to come down. In the state of Texas, Hispanics are a very big factor. But remember, immigration is a thing. It's not at a constant rate. Usually what ends up happening is that we see like a regular curve, like in anything we see in the world. It has a very high point, it has a very low or high level of increasing, but there's a point that either there's no more immigrants or the situations in the other countries have leveled out, so there's barely any growth. We're going to reach that point sometime in United States history, probably by 2040 or 2050, and that's realistically when we're going to start seeing second or third generations of Hispanics that mostly came during the 60s to 90s era. And we're going to see this trend going a lot, and more different minorities will pop up. And then at one point in time, we're going to be seeing a minority, everyone's going to be minorities. Whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, all of these different groups will become minorities. Whether you're American Indian, and these different groups of people will become, everyone will be minorities at some point in time. Hispanics are projected to be the largest one during this election, and it's going to be something that we're going to be seeing significantly. And I'm just going to put the state right here red, just to signify that although Democrats have a nice shot at the state, even though they have Hispanic support and everything, it's still going to go red. Not by a safe margin, perhaps, but it's going to go red. The next state I wanted to talk about is the state of Arizona. So, most Hispanics here, of what I've heard, they really care about the immigration issue and the general Hispanic issues that almost all Hispanics care about, which is economic. So, first of all, with the border issue, I think Trump's comments with a lot of these different things, with the just saying some very bad things and being isolationist, and just being like trying to keep all these people out, some of that really rubs the wrong way, and a lot of people see it as racist. And these people really value Democrats that are kind of speaking up for them. So that might be a reason why Democrats have a big boost in the state of Arizona, along with the voters that don't like Donald Trump, that are just regular suburban voters. So there's another misconception I would like to clear up, and it's the misconception that the United States as a country, whether it be Congress or whether it be the administration, is not trying to do anything for the Hispanic community. That is completely false. And I'm going to tell you why. I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I am completely independent. And just analyzing it, it really does make sense. So, first thing they're doing is they're getting rid of these drug cartels that are in parts of Mexico and generally all of Latin America. They're trying to get rid of those drugs because, honestly, it's those drug cartels that go into and play a big factor into making a lot of these countries unstable and insecure. So for that reason, the United States government has started an operation in Latin America, near Colombia, and they have also done big operations with Mexico, where they go in and like start getting down these cartels. They start arresting the cartel leaders, and it's something that the mainstream media hasn't projected as much, but it's something that is happening. And if you just check the Secretary of State's Twitter and all these different Twitter pages for official Twitter pages for the mission, you're going to see they're collecting a lot of drugs, which essentially just helps the Latin American community and realistically stops them from coming because they're fixing some of the problems they have in their own places. And I think second and foremost, we're seeing the United States going actually in and helping with aid. And for one of these big reasons, we have a very interesting case in countries like El Salvador, where you have the United States backed up a political candidate, and he has accomplished very big things. He's the president right now of El Salvador. It's Nayib Bukele, and along with different help from the United States and economic treaties and all these things, in Salvador, they have very low crime rates now, or they're lowering rapidly, and just economic growth is through the roof in that country. So a lot of Americans think that, generally speaking, it's also because I think that it's not projected as much by communication sources, that the United States in general, and it's mostly Congress as well, is helping a lot of these Latin American nations. And at the end of the day, that really resonates with some of the Hispanic voters. But at the end of the day, there's a lot who are not informed of these things. So they might think that it's just bad things from the Republican Party. And I think that's one of the major reasons why the Republican Party will gain some votes during this election and more Hispanic support than in 2016. And it's mostly because the fact that a lot of these Hispanic voters are happy because the government is going, the US government is trying to get involved in these different states and going in and fixing a lot of the things that were wrong, especially when it comes to things like drug cartels and very bad governments, and just going in and trying to reform it and helping shaping democracy in these places, so there's no need for mass immigration to the United States. And for last but not least, I'm going to talk about the state of Florida. The state of Florida is very interesting right now, with a lot of the Hispanic support there. Has been shifting a little bit more to the right, with the Cuban population, and there's increasing Venezuelan populations in the state of Florida. But you also have a group of almost even amount of Puerto Ricans that are split evenly. So at the end of the day, Hispanic support in the state of Florida is very high, and it really does benefit the Republican Party. And when it comes to affecting the election in general, realistically speaking, Obama won in part for Hispanic support. And it was also that Hillary Clinton, she did pretty good with the Hispanic support, but honestly, she could have done a lot better, and she probably could have carried the state of Florida if she had enough Hispanic support. But in the state of Florida, generally, what really impacts is voter turnout amongst African Americans and Hispanics. If African Americans turn out more than Hispanics, Democrats generally win the election. And if Hispanics turn out more than the African Americans, generally speaking, the Republican Party wins the election. So I think this is a very interesting thing, and it's not talked about with all the different things that are actually happening with the United States involvement in Latin America and trying to fix these places. Because look, these different issues that Hispanic cares about, it's because a lot of the these people that have migrated over the last 50 years, because we have seen a heavy migration since the 1960s with the Cubans. Now we have second generation, third generation here in the United States, but as well as some of the migrants that are coming more recently. They're migrating because they don't have the right living conditions, their governments are not working for them, or simply the fact that it's too violent and insecure to live in their home countries. So these are all the states on your screen are heavily affected by immigration, and these are one of the most diverse states. And generally, they're more Democratic, but there are still some Republican states that have some Hispanic populations and minorities in general. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys found it informative. Go check out the video I made with 2020 election predictions. You guys will really enjoy it if you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, turn on post notifications, smash that like button. I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.